Okay, welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really getting into some source material you shared with us.
That's right.
Specifically, it's an audio excerpt, sounds
Yeah.
like it's called day14.mp3.
Hmm.
And the focus is something, well, something that I think almost everyone learning English bumps up against: common grammar mistakes.
Oh, absolutely. It's such a universal part of the learning journey, isn't it? For English, for really any language.
Yeah.
You put a sentence together, maybe you say it, and then that little flicker of doubt. Did I say that right?
Or someone corrects you, very
Yeah.
helpfully maybe, but you're still left thinking, okay, but why was that wrong?
Exactly. That why is key.
So our mission today for this deep dive is pretty clear. We're going to unpack this source you sent, pull out the key insights it offers on these frequent errors.
And crucially, look at the simple, practical ways the source suggests you can spot them and, importantly, fix them.
The goal, really, as your source seems to highlight, is helping you sound, well, more natural, more confident when you speak English.
Yeah, building that fluency. And I think it's important right off the bat to echo the tone of the source here. It's not about judgment.
Not at all.
Grammar mistakes are just. They're normal. They happen when you're learning. All the time.
The source even points out native speakers slip up sometimes, especially talking casually.
Totally. So think of this as a supportive look. It's not about chasing some impossible idea of perfection.
Right, it's about progress. It's
Yeah.
about understanding the nuts and bolts a bit better.
Exactly. We're shining a light on these specific areas your source flags as, common stumbling blocks.
By focusing on these, you can start hearing them, maybe in your own speech, maybe when you listen to others.
And then consciously work on them. It's targeted improvement, really.
Okay, so let's dive into that universal challenge. Grammar mistakes. That feeling, you felt it, right? Trying to get an idea out, and you're just not quite sure.
Oh, yeah.
Is that the right tense? Do I need a word there? Is that the right word? Ending.
Every single English learner knows that feeling. The source really validates that. It says, look, this happens to everyone. Beginners, sure, but even advanced learners.
Still refining things.
Exactly, especially when
Right.
you're speaking, spontaneously. Maybe a little pressure. Those tricky grammar points, they're often the first things to wobble.
It is genuinely reassuring to know it's not just you struggling with, say, articles or verb endings.
And the good news, the really encouraging part from this source, is that a lot of these common errors aren't some deep, complex mystery.
They're fixable.
Often, yes, they're
Yeah.
quite systematic. Once you understand the pattern, the why behind the English structure,
Yeah.
and you see what the mistake is, the fix can be, well, surprisingly simple sometimes.
Yeah, the source really seems focused on practical steps. It says the objective is to cover the most common mistakes.
Right, the high-frequency ones.
And show simple ways to fix them. It's all geared toward getting your sentences to sound more natural, more confident.
Moving from sentences that maybe sound a little, I don't know, off or foreign to a native ear,
Yeah.
to sentences that just flow. They follow the standard patterns.
It sounds like a really useful roadmap. So, according to this source, where does the journey start? What's mistake number one on the hit list?
Well, it dives right into one of the biggest ones, articles.
And the...
Those tiny little words, your source flags this as, arguably one of the most frequent areas for mistakes.
They're so small, though. A, and, they. It's kind of amazing they cause so much trouble.
It is, isn't it? But the source makes a really compelling point.
Yep.
Get these little words wrong or leave them out when they're needed, and you can actually change the whole meaning of your sentence.
Really?
Definitely. So the core rule presented in your source is pretty fundamental. Simple on the surface, maybe.
What is it?
Use a or an for something general, non-specific, one of many.
Okay. A cat, an apple.
Right. And use the for something specific, something unique, or something we've already talked about so we both know which one we mean.
Okay. In general, the specific. Let's break that down with the source's examples. It says, if I say, I saw a cat in the street, what's the A doing there?
The A tells you it was just some cat, any cat, not a particular cat that you and I know. It's one random cat out of all the cats in the world. The A signals it's non-specific. Its identity isn't known or important at that moment.
Okay, clear. And then the source contrasts it. But if I say I saw the cat on my neighbor's porch, now it's the. Why the switch?
That switch to the signal specificity, it implies this is a particular cat. Maybe it's the neighbor's actual cat, the one we know, or maybe we were just talking about a stray cat that hangs around, and now I'm referring back to that specific one. The points to something unique or identified in the context.
That makes sense. So A for any old cat, for the specific one we're thinking of.
Spot on. And that general versus specific distinction is crucial for articles.
Your source also mentions another related mistake, which I think I make sometimes, using when you mean something general, like a whole category.
Ah, yes.
Their example is saying, I like the pizza, when you just mean you like pizza generally, as a food.
Yes, that's super common. Because in English, when we talk about general concepts or categories or uncountable things like pizza or chocolate or happiness or water, we often use no article at all.
No article, like zero.
Exactly. It's sometimes called the zero article.
And your source gives the correct general forms for those examples. I like pizza. I love chocolate. No the.
Precisely. I like pizza. You're talking about pizza in general. As a food concept, if you said, I like the pizza, it sounds like you mean a specific pizza.
Like the one we're eating right now.
Exactly. Or the one we had last night. Same with chocolate. I love chocolate. General statement. I love the chocolate you brought me. That's specific chocolate.
Okay, let me try and summarize that using the source's examples. If it's any random dog, you say, I saw a dog.
Correct.
If it's that specific dog we both know, maybe the neighbor's noisy one, it's, I saw the dog. And if you're just talking about your general love for pizza as a food type, it's just, I like pizza. Zero article.
You've nailed it. That's the core logic your source is explaining. Getting articles right, knowing when to use an, when to use the, and when to use nothing, it adds so much precision.
It really makes it sound more finished somehow.
It does. More natural. It clarifies whether you mean one instance, a specific one, or the whole category. It's a small detail with a surprisingly big impact on clarity and fluency.
Definitely feels like something worth paying attention to. Okay, so from tiny words to another tiny thing often missed, a little letter at the end of a verb.
Ah, yes. The infamous S.
Your source highlights forgetting to add S or S to verbs in the present simple tense, but only sometimes, right?
That's the key. Only when the subject is third person singular, so he, she, or it. And only in the present simple tense.
Right. This one definitely catches people out. I hear it a lot. The source gives an example of the mistake, like she walked to work every day.
Or maybe he liked black coffee.
Yeah. And that phrase every day, or just the context of preference, tells us it should be present simple for habits or facts.
Exactly. Walk and like are the base verbs, but standard English grammar demands something extra when the subject is he, she, or it in this tense.
So the correct forms, according to the source.
She walks to work every day. And he likes black coffee. That little is sound at the end is crucial.
And the source lays out the rule pretty simply. It's worth going over because it trips so many people up.
Definitely. The rule is, for I, you, we, and they, you just use the plain base form of the verb.
Like in the source examples, I work, they play.
Right. We eat. You understand? No one's needed there.
And here's the part the source emphasizes. The tricky part for he, she, and it, you have to add that S or S.
Correct. Source examples, he works, she watches, it goes.
Let's think of a few more following that pattern. He reads, she sings, it rains.
Perfect. And remember, it can be an animal, an object, a situation. My phone rings. It rings. The bus arrives. It arrives. Sarah drives. She drives. David knows. He knows.
It applies to names too, of course.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Any single person or thing that isn't I or you. And it's not just action verbs, state verbs too. He seems tired. She owns a shop. It looks good. That S is the grammatical marker for third-person singular present simple.
It's wild how much grammatical information is packed into that one little sound.
It really is.
Your source has a great piece of advice here. Listen to yourself when speaking. If you're talking about he, she, or it, don't forget that S at the end of the verb.
That self-monitoring is so important. Just knowing the rule is step one, like the source says.
Yeah.
But then actively listening to catch yourself, that's where the real change happens. Maybe you say he like, and then you catch it. Oh, wait, he likes? It takes practice. But making that small adjustment consistently really boosts your grammatical accuracy for everyday statements.
It's definitely one of those things that when you get it right, your English just sounds more standard, more fluent. Okay, moving on. From verb endings to whole sentence structure. Questions.
Ah, question formation, another classic challenge area.
Your source points out a big reason why. People often translate directly from their own language's question structure.
Which often doesn't work for English because English relies heavily on a specific structure, especially for standard questions.
And the example the source gives of a direct translation mistake is someone just saying a statement with rising intonation like, you like coffee. hoping it works as a question.
Right, and while intonation can sometimes signal a question in very informal contexts or express surprise, the standard way to form many yes-no questions in English is different. It needs help.
Help from auxiliary verbs.
Exactly, those little helper verbs. Your source lays out the main structures really well. For lots of verbs, not be or modals like can, you need to start with do or does.
So, that you like coffee. Example becomes.
Do you like coffee? The do comes before the subject you.
And if it was she.
Then it would be, does she like coffee? Linking back to our S rule again, does is the form for he, she, its.
Okay, so does he work here? Does it hurt?
Precisely. That do or does at the beginning is essential for present simple questions with most verbs.
What about questions with the verb to be? Your source mentions is and are. The structure's a bit different there.
Slightly different, yes. You don't need do or does. Instead, the be verb itself moves to the front.
The source's example is she coming to the party?
Right. The is moves before the subject she. Same logic for other be verbs. Are you ready and I late? Is it cold outside? Are they students? The be verb leads the question.
Okay, so dodos for most verbs, moves for be verbs.
Yeah.
What else? The source mentions can and will.
Right, modal verbs like can, could, should, might, must, and also the future auxiliary will. For these, the modal verb or will moves to the front, similar to be.
Examples from the source. Can you swim and will they be there?
Perfect. The can or will goes before the subject. Let's add a few more based on that pattern. Should I wait? Could you pass the salt? Must he leave now? Will it rain tomorrow? The modal or will starts the question.
So the big takeaway from your source here is standard English questions usually need one of these helper words, an auxiliary like do, does, am, is, are, or a modal like can, will, should right at the beginning before the subject.
That's the fundamental structure. It's very different from languages where you might just change intonation or add a question word at the end. Getting this word order right is key for clear standard questions.
And it seems this whole idea of auxiliary verbs being super important pops up again right away in the next section of your source, talking about negative sentences.
It does, yes, because just like questions, forming standard negative sentences in English often requires an auxiliary verb, especially do or does in the present simple.
Another common mistake the source highlights is forgetting that auxiliary in negatives. The example given is a learner saying something like, I not like spicy food.
Which, again, you can see how that might come from direct translation. Maybe in their language, you just put not after the subject or verb.
But standard English needs more structure.
It does. The correct form, as your source shows, is I don't like spicy food.
Don't being the contraction of do not.
Exactly. You need that do auxiliary plus not. And again, if the subject is he, she, or it, you need does not, usually contracted to doesn't.
Right. So sticking with the source's logic, she doesn't like spicy food. He doesn't live here. It doesn't work.
Perfect. You need that don't or doesn't between the subject and the main verb for present simple negatives, unless the verb is be or a modal.
Your source really hammers this home, saying clearly. So always remember in English, negatives and questions need an auxiliary verb like do or does.
It's a core principle they're emphasizing. For simple tenses, do is your go-to helper for making questions and negatives with most verbs.
It's like a grammatical tool you have to use.
It is, and it's different from negating be, he is not happy, or they are not ready, or modals, you cannot park here, or we should not go. Those just add not. But for other verbs and simple tenses, you need do. It's a common point of confusion your source rightly focuses on.
Okay, that's clear. Let's move to what your source calls a classic mistake, something that seems to confuse learners even at higher levels, mixing up the past simple and the present perfect tenses.
Ah, yes, the battle of the pasts. They both talk about things before now, which is why it gets tricky.
But they frame it differently.
Exactly. Different nuances, especially about time and connection to the present.
Your source gives a couple of really common errors here. First, I have went.
Okay, this one is about the form of the verb. Present perfect uses have or has plus the past participle.
Which isn't always the same as the simple past form.
Correct. For go, the simple past is went, but the past participle is gone. So I have went is wrong because it uses the simple past form after have.
The correct version from the source.
I have gone, using the past participle. Same for irregular verbs like see past is saw, participle is seen. So I have seen, not I have saw. Or eat past ate, participle eaten, we have eaten, not we have ate.
Got it. So that's a verb form mistake. The other example from the source tackles when to use which tense. I have seen him yesterday.
And this gets right to the heart of the confusion. Have seen is the correct present perfect form, but
You can't use it with yesterday.
generally no, not in standard English, because yesterday is a specific finished time in the past.
So what's the rule the source gives for telling them apart?
It's actually quite straightforward, though applying it takes practice. The source says, use past simple with specific times,
Okay.
and conversely, use present perfect when the time is not mentioned, or when the time is indefinite or unfinished.
Okay. So back to I have seen him yesterday. Yesterday is specific, finished,
Right. So the rule says, use past simple.
which means the correct sentence is,
I saw him yesterday, using the simple past form saw.
okay, let's try a few more based on that rule. I finished the report last week. Specific time last week, so past simple, finished.
Perfect.
They visited Japan in 2018.
Yeah.
Specific time 2018, so past simple, visited.
Spot on. Anytime you name that finish point or period yesterday, last Tuesday, 5 minutes ago, when I was 10, past simple is usually your go-to.
And the other side of the coin, use present perfect when the time isn't specific or isn't the main point.
Exactly. Your source uses its own examples again to illustrate this. I saw her yesterday, correct, specific time, but I have seen her before, also correct.
Why is I have seen her before?
Okay. Because before isn't a specific point in time. It just means at some point in the past, prior to now, the exact moment isn't stated or important.
So present perfect works for experiences maybe. Like, I have been to France. Sometime in my life, doesn't matter exactly when.
Precisely. Experiences are a classic use, or for actions in the past that have a result now, like the source might imply with an example like, I have lost my wallet.
Meaning I lost it sometime before now, and the result is I don't have it now.
Exactly. The connection to the present result is key there. Compare again. I lost my wallet last night. Specific time, so past simple.
It's really about the focus, isn't it? Are you focusing on when it happened, past simple, or on the experience itself or its connection to now, present perfect?
That's a great way to put it. And the source's practical tip, look for those specific time words like yesterday, last week, in 2019, is a really helpful shortcut for learners. If you see one, lean towards past simple. If not, present perfect might be the better choice.
That is a very useful rule of thumb. Okay, we've dug into some major grammar points from your source. Articles, the present simple as, question structure, negatives, and this past simple present perfect distinction. But then the source does something really valuable, I think. It kind of zooms out.
Yeah, it offers a bit of perspective, which is important.
It acknowledges very directly that grammar mistakes, they happen to everyone learning.
And importantly, it points out that quite often, especially when you're just chatting, small mistakes don't actually break communication.
That's huge.
Yeah.
You miss an S, you forget an article, you mix up a tense slightly. Chances are the person you're talking to, they'll still get your meaning.
Absolutely. Context does a lot of the heavy lifting in conversation.
Yeah.
The source makes it clear. You don't need flawless grammar to be understood.
Takes the pressure off a bit.
It really should. But then the source pivots slightly. It says, okay, communication is possible despite mistakes, but if you want to sound more fluent, more polished, more natural, then working on these common errors is valuable.
Right. It's the difference between just getting your point across and expressing yourself accurately and naturally within the language's patterns.
Precisely. Fixing these common mistakes, the ones your source targets, helps bridge that gap. It's about refining your English.
And then the source adds another layer of complexity, or maybe realism. It talks about flexibility in spoken English.
Yes, it mentions that, depending on where you are, who you're talking to, the context. Grammar in spoken English can sometimes be a bit looser than the strict rules in a textbook.
This is where they bring up that interesting example, saying that in informal American English, you might sometimes hear, she don't like coffee.
Right. Now, based on the standard rules we just discussed from the source itself.
The rule is, she doesn't like coffee, using do.
Exactly. That's the standard grammatically correct form we teach and learners should generally aim for.
But the source acknowledges this other form, she don't, exists in some contexts.
And that's a really insightful point for a learner. The source isn't saying she don't is correct by standard grammar rules.
No.
It's offering a descriptive observation. It's saying, hey, be aware language varies in some informal spoken situations, particularly in American English. You might encounter this. It's acknowledging linguistic reality.
It shows that gap between the prescriptive rules, what you should say, and descriptive reality, what some people do say informally.
Exactly. Knowing this helps you understand what you might hear without getting confused, but it also reinforces why learning the standard form doesn't is important for wider communication in more formal settings.
So you recognize the informal variant, but you stick to the standard one yourself, generally.
That would be the usual advice, yes. Unless you're very comfortable and deliberately code switching in a specific informal context.
Okay. So bringing all these threads together, the need for accuracy, the reality of mistakes, the existence of informal variations, what's the source's main takeaway message?
It seems to be a balance. The source essentially says, don't let the fear of making mistakes paralyze you. Speak.
Be brave.
Be brave. But also, listen carefully, notice the patterns, notice your own errors when you can, and work on correcting them.
So courage plus attention to detail.
That's a great summary. It's about being an active, engaged learner, speaking, making mistakes, noticing, adjusting, speaking again. That cycle.
It really promotes a healthy attitude towards learning.
Okay, so based on all this insight from your source, they wrap up with a practical challenge for you, the listener.
They do. 3 simple steps. Step 1, just listen to yourself speak English today. Pay attention.
Become more aware. Maybe even record yourself for a minute or two.
Could do, yeah, if that helps you listen more objectively. Step 2, pick one. Just one of the mistakes we discussed.
Not all of them.
No, don't overwhelm yourself. Maybe it's articles, maybe it's the present simple tense, maybe question order. Just choose one thing to focus on for now.
Okay, focus is key. Step 3.
Practice saying it correctly, out loud. Make sentences using the right structure. If it's the us, say he walks, she talks. It seems, repeat them, make them your own.
Actively producing the correct form helps embed it.
Definitely. And the source adds a nice reflective prompt too.
Oh, yeah.
Think about a grammar mistake you used to make, but you've managed to fix. What was it? How did you realize? What did you do to fix it?
Oh, that's powerful. Recognizing your own progress. Exactly. It reminds you that improvement is possible, and maybe the strategies you used before can help with the next challenge. It builds confidence.
Wow. We really have unpacked a lot from this source file. We've pinpointed those common grammar traps articles, the TAs, question-negative structure, past simple versus present perfect.
And we've highlighted the source's clear rules and tips for getting them right.
Plus that crucial overarching message. Mistakes are okay. Practice is key. Don't be afraid.
It's a process.
Absolutely. And, thinking about that she don't example the source brought up, it leaves us with a pretty interesting question to ponder based on everything we've discussed from this material. How does understanding both the correct standard grammar rules and the fact that informal variations exist, how does it change how you approach learning and practicing English? Does it make you aim strictly for the standard, or does it make you think differently about correctness itself?
That's a deep one. It really touches on the nature of language, doesn't it? Standard versus usage.
Something to chew on. Your source material also gives a little teaser for what's next, mentioning the topic for the following day. How to tell stories in English and make your speech more engaging.
Oh, that sounds like a fantastic next step. Taking these grammatical foundations and applying them to more flowing, engaging communication. Perfect.
It does sound great. Well, we really hope this deep dive into your source has been genuinely useful, giving you some clear things to work on and practical ways to do it.
Keep listening, keep speaking, embrace the mistakes as learning opportunities, and keep refining. You're doing great.
Thanks so much for joining us for this deep dive.